Hello everyone and welcome to a new After Effects tutorial. Today you are going to learn how to create these dynamic line waves with complex expressions and just with one layer. So let me explain how it works and we will get right into it. Alright, so I have here my main composition where the lines layer is. You can see that basically this method converts or transforms video footage or any kind of animation into this lines visualization. So basically you can, inside this animation composition, you can animate anything that you want and the lines will display that exact animation. As you can see here, I have this turbulent displays, this text, just a ball moving. You will see here that the ball is moving right there. I have another turbulent display, so any kind of animation that goes here will be converted into the lines. And also we have control on how many points, because each of these lines are composed by a certain amount of points that is established right here. So I have 30 points per line, so 1, 2, 3, until we get to 30. The distance between lines on the y-axis, so if I reduce this distance, you will see that the lines will be together. And the y-influence, that is how much each point will go up or down, depending on the color that is below it. So right here I have 55 pixels, but I can set it to maybe 100, and you'll see that the points will be higher. So you will see that each of these points looks at the position on where that point is standing on the composition world, on the composition space, sorry. And if in that position we have a white color or a high brightness color, it will go up, and if we have a low or a dark color, it will go down. As you can see here on the ball, all the animation is black except for the ball itself, that is white, and you will see that these points will be up. So that's where we are going to be coding today. So prepare yourself to code like a lot, because it's really quite complex. I'm going to explain first two basic principles that this is going to be based. That is how to create a line with points using expressions, and how to make each point go up or down using also expressions, using the sampleImage method. So let's get right into it. All right, first of all, you have to make sure to have your animation composition. This animation composition you can put wherever you want. You can put a footage, you can put an animation, a solid layer, a text, anything, but it has to be black and white, and it has to be blurred. So for this I'm using this adjustment layer with the effects fastbox blur and black and white. You can set this maybe to 20, something like that, between 15 and 20 will be nice. So this is what we are going to use after we have all the other methods ready. Alright, so now I'm going to explain you how to create the points using an expression. For that we are going to use createPath method, and I'm going to show right now how it works. So I'm just going to grab the pen tool and create just a normal path. Let me just set the layer name of these two lines. And now what we are going to do is, on the path, we are going to write an expression. So you have to alt click on path, and here we can write our expression. Let me just give a little more space here. Perfect. So, all right. So we can use the createPath method, and for this we need quite a few arguments. All right then, so these are the arguments that we are going to need to create the path. Inside the two parentheses we are going to put the first argument, that is points, and this argument is going to contain all the points that the lines will be composed from. The in tangents and the out tangents, that we are not going to use them in this case, and also is close, that is going to set that if the path is going to be close from the last point to the first, in this case, we are going to use this as false. I'm going to show you how it works in detail. So here we have the points. I'm just setting this as my points variable, but it's not defined, so I'm going to do it. Let me just define this variable, let my points. And here we have to write an array of points. Let me just change the language of my keyboard right there. Here we have to set an array of points. So I'm going to set maybe the point 0, 0, and also the point, I don't know, 500 and 500. So this is going to create a path with the points 0, 0 and 500, 500. And you will see here, this is, let me just increase the stroke right there. So maybe you are expecting to have the 0, 0 on the top left corner of the composition and the 500, 500 maybe over the middle. This is not like this in this case because I am using the layer coordinates, the layer space in this case. So to do that, I have to convert these coordinates take them from the composition, and for that I'm going to use a method that it's called fromComp right there, and this is going to convert the these coordinates from the composition layer, from the composition space, sorry, to the layer space. I'm just going to repeat the same process here. So you will see that the point 0, 0 using the layer space is right there, where is the anchor point of the layer, right there. And the point, so I'm going to just convert these points, and you will see that I have these points right where I wanted. So in 0, 0 and on 500, 500 from the composition space. So I can add any amount of points that I like. So maybe, I don't know, I'm just going to add another one that is, I don't know, maybe 300, 800, sorry, right there. And you'll see that I have the path created with these points. So what we are going to do with the other method is we're going to create an n amount of points that is going to be controlled by the control layer that I just showed you. And we're going to set those points on the same position on the y-axis, but with an offset position on the x-axis for each point, right? So now that we have this clear, I'm going to explain how to use the method to move the points up and down depending on the animation. Alright, so I have here my composition. For this, you have to make sure that your animation composition is the same size, the same exact size as the composition where you are creating the dynamic lines. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my animation composition right here. I'm just going to hide it because I don't need to show it. And now I'm going to just create just a normal circle here. Let me just change the layer name, maybe change the color to white, the stroke to 0. I'm just going to set the anchor point to the middle. I just grab the anchor point tool and with control align it to the middle. And now what we are going to do is add an expression on the position. Okay, all right, so I have here my sample variable, and what I want from this is just to get the color that is on the points position on the animation composition. All right, so I want, so let's say that this circle, this point, it's just standing on the 827 and 498 position. That's the position of the circle. I want to get the color on that position on the animation composition. All right, so the way to do this is I'm just going to create a sample variable right here. And I'm going to say, hey, look on this composition, look the layer animation, this one. All right, so now go use the sampleImage method that is going to return the color. And here we have to give it 2 arguments. The first one is the position on where we are going to look at. In this case, I'm just writing here position because I'm going to use the position of the circle. And then this is like a radius, the area or on where the sample image method will look at. So if we set this to 1, 1, this is just going to watch on 1 pixel on the x-axis and 1 pixel on the y-axis. But if we set this to 100 and 100, it's going to look at a much bigger area and it's going to return the average color of that area. But in this case, I just want to know the color of that exact point and just not the average of a specific area. So now that we have this, this is going to return an RGB color, right? But we are going to look at the luminance of the footage on the animation. So for that, we need to know what's the luminance value, and the RGB colors, we cannot know that. So we are going to have to convert the RGB colors to HSL color. So HSL is going to give us the hue, saturation, and luminance, and the luminance value is the exact one that we want to look at. We want to get that information. So for that, we are going to use another method. Let me just create another variable right here, HSL color, and now we are going to convert using the RGB to HSL method, and we are going to give it the sample variable. All right, so now we can look at the luminance value, and for that we have to look at this. Is the HSL color will be an array, okay, an array of four variables. The first one will be hue, the second will be saturation, the third will be luminance, and the fourth will be alpha. We are just going to use the luminance value. All right, so what we need to do is just to get that luminance. Let me just define another variable, luminance. All right, so I have my luminance value right here, and I want to get the luminance value from the HSL color. Sorry, HSL color, and for this, as you may know, I need to get the third element of the array. I have to specify HSA color between brackets, the number of the element, and this case will be the third, but as you may know, the arrays in JavaScript starts at 0, but the arrays and in all coding languages starts at 0, so this will be the item number 2. Now the luminance value will get the luminance value at this point. So the luminance value will be a number between 0 and 1. Okay, so we need to play with this a little bit. So we are going to say, hey, when the luminance value is 0, I want this point to be below, to be down. I don't want it to go up. But when the luminance value is 1, I want it to go up by a certain amount of pixels. And we're going to do this using the linear method. So the linear method is going to allow us to map a specific range of value to another range of value. Let me just explain how it works. So I'm just going to create a new variable, and remember, we are going to move the point up and down just on the y-axis. So I'm just going to create a variable that is called new y value, and here I'm going to use the linear method right there. Okay, so I have to write here 5 arguments. The first one is the value that I'm just going to be looking at. So in this case, I'm going to be looking at the luminance value. All right, the second argument will be the minimum of this range. So in this case, we know, I just explained that the minimum value for luminance will be 0. The third argument will be the maximum, it will be 1 of luminance. The fourth value will be the number that I want to map with this minimum. So when as I just said, when the luminance is 0, I want the position to go up 0 pixels because I want it to stay the same. All right, and the third number, and the fifth number, sorry, will be the number that I want to have when the luminance is on 1. All right, so maybe I'm just going to say 100. Okay, so now I have this new y value. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to return the new value to the position. I need to return an array. So I want to have the value, the actual value that I have, so I'm free to move it in just this specific example. And I'm going to add a new array, and this array will be 0 on the x-axis and new y value on the y-axis. So right there, and you will see that the circle will be moving up and down. I'm just going to activate this animation layer. You will see here that, look at this, when the circle is on top of a white area, it will be up, but when it comes to, look at this, when it starts to darken on this area, it will come down. Here is down, here it goes up again, and here it goes down again, and this will change again. Alright, so now you understand how the two principles that we are going to use works. Basically, we have the first one, that we are going to build a path on a shape layer using expressions, and the second principle, that we are going to be building that exact same path using these points. So each of the points that are going to build each line have this little expression on it that is going to allow each one of them to go up and down according to the information that is below them on the animation composition. So now that we have this ready, let's just create the full animation. Alright, so I have my animation right here. I'm going to create an adjustment layer, and I'm going to name it controls, and here I need 3 sliders. I'm not going to create them from scratch. I'm just going to copy and paste them from my main composition, but basically you need to make sure to create 3 sliders, one for the amount of points, one for the distance between lines, and one for the Y influence. So let's just hide this control layer because we don't need to see it, we just need the sliders right there. And now we are going to create just a normal path like that. Make sure to have a white line, maybe with a stroke of 5. Rename this layer to lines, and make sure to have select on contents and add round corners. So this is going to make sure that all the curves, all the points have curves between them, because otherwise they will be like points and peaks with an angle, and we don't want that. So let me just set this to 150 and like that. We are not seeing this applied just yet because we don't have any curve points, so we just have 2. Alright, so now we are going to apply an expression. Let me just delete the fill. We are going to apply an expression to the path of the shape. Maybe change the name of the shape 1 to line 1, because we are going to duplicate this group right here, so it's maybe a good practice to change the name. Alright, so now let's begin to write the expression. Alright, so I have here my first 4 lines of code, and this is quite simple, it's nothing complex. I'm just linking these variables to the corresponding slider on the control layer. The variables amount of points, distance between lines, and Y influence. And just right on the distance between points variable, what I'm going to do is just set just as the name says, I'm just going to set the distance between each point. So let's say that I have a composition of 1000 pixels wide, just as we are getting that value from this comp.width, and I'm going to divide it by the amount of points. So if I have a composition of 1000 pixels of width, and I have 10 points, the distance between each point will be of 100 pixels. So I'm just getting that value from this variable. All right. So once you have this, we can proceed with the interesting part. All right. So the next part will be to get the index of this group right here, because this is going to be useful once we start duplicating each line, because when each line is duplicated, it will be going down, 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 down for each line that we duplicate. So we need to get for that we need the index of that specific line. All right, the index is the number of, for example, the index of the layers is this number right here, but the 1 and the 2, but we cannot use that index value for this specific case, because this line group or this shape group, it doesn't have this index. So we are going to access that this group index using this line of code. We are going to say, hey, look at this property, the property group number 3, and then the property index is going to return the index. So when we duplicate this line, this index will be increasing with each line that we duplicate. I hope I made myself clear. And then we are going to create an array inside the variable. It's going to be empty because right here we are going to store all the points that are going to be composing each line. All right. And to create all the points, we're going to use the for method, a for loop. All right, so I have here my for loop right here, and some interesting things are happening inside it. So I'm just here setting that we are going to use the y variable to loop. We're going to set it as 0, and we are going to loop until we reach the value of the amount of points. So if we have 30 points, we're going to loop inside here 30 times, and each time it loops, it will increase the value of y by 1. So when it finishes, so on the first run we have the y on 0, then it runs, and then it increases 1. So now we have it on 1, and it goes like so until we reach the number of points, let's say 30, and then it stops. So right here, what we are going to do is just to create a temporal point, and for the coordinates of that point, we are going to use the distance between points multiplied by the y variables, because when the y variable is set to 0, the distance multiplied by the distance between points, it will be 0. So that point will be on 0 on the x-axis, and then for the y-axis we are going to use my index, the index of the line group, multiplied by the distance between lines. So this means that for the first line group, this is going to be 0 because the index will be 1 and I'm subtracting just 1, so it will be on 0 again. But then as we duplicate the line groups, that index, this my index variable, will begin to increase. So we are going to multiply 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on for the distance between lines. So you will see that each line will be going down, 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 down. So this is going to be our 10 point, and we are using again the from comp method to transform these coordinates from the composition space to the layer space. All right, and here we are going to use the same method as we did before with the sample image. I'm going to look at this composition, the layer animation, the sample image, and here is something a little bit different, because instead of using the position, because if we write here position, it will look at the position of the layer, and that's not what we want. We're going to use at the position of the 10 point, but you saw before that this 10 point has been converted to the layer space. All right, so we are going to convert it back again to the composition space. So we are going to use the method to comp to convert to the composition space, so it will look at the sample image at the position of the 10 point on the composition, and we are using again the 1, 1 area. All right, we are just looking at the HSL value, just converting to HSL, and then we are here using the post influence, the variable post influence, and we are setting inside it a linear, just as we did before. We have the HSL on the number 2, that this is just the luminance, and as before 0 and 1, and we are mapping both of these values to the Y influence. The Y influence will be the amount of pixels that is going to move up and down depending on the lightness or darkness on that specific point. So when the luminance value is 0, the Y influence will be the positive Y influence, and when the luminance is 1, the Y influence will be the negative Y influence. And now we are going to create the variable new point, and this is just the temp point that we have right here with these coordinates, and we are adding the pos influence just as we did before. So this is just basically the same but inside the for loop. Now that we have our point saved on the new point variable, we are going to add it to the myPoints array. So for that we are going to use the push method. So what it's going to do is, hey, look at this array, just add this element. So we are going to add the new point through the push method to the myPoints array. So now that we have this ready, all that we have to do is just to create the path using the createPath method, and we are going to do just that. All right, so here it is. So I have my points. I'm just using my points in tangents and out tangents. I'm not going to use this now, and it's close. I'm just going to set it as false. So if I click outside, you'll see that I have here my dynamic line wave. All right, so I'm just going to activate the animation for a little bit, and you will see that it's going to be changing along with the lightness of the animation. Okay, so if I set this to, I just want to show you, if I set this to true, you will see that it will close from the last point to the first. It will create a line, and we don't want that, so I'm just going to set it as false. All right, so now to create all of the lines, so I have one right now. It's quite simple. I'm just going to select the line 1 and just going to duplicate it quite a lot, and you will see that I have all of my lines right here. Maybe I'm just going to reduce the stroke width maybe to 2 right there, and here we can change some values from the control layer. We can have the amount of points. You can look at this as the level of detail. So if I just say, hey, I want 8 points per line, you will see that it's not very detailed. But if I have maybe 60, it will be quite detailed. Maybe we can look at this better with the text right there. So you'll see that the text here is noticeable, but if I set this to 8, you won't get it, right? So the distance between lines, maybe we can have it on 5. You will have like a more detail, but the more lines you have, the more heavy the project will be. You will see that it's quite slow, so maybe I recommend to find the balance to the components of your computer. And here we have the Y influence, so I just have it on 55. I can set it to 15. It's not going to be very noticeable, but maybe you want that effect. Or I can set it to negative 100, and you will have the inverse effect. So you will see that the lines, the points, instead of going up when the point in that is white on the animation, they will go down. So I don't like that in this case, so I'm just going to set it as 55. Alright, so then you can just multiply all of your lines until you cover all of your composition. Remember that it's quite heavy. I'm going to show you then how you will see. I'm just going to select the line right here. You will see how this line is composed by, I don't know if it's noticeable, but you will see how each of these lines are composed by a specific amount of points. You will see the points right here. So you have 30 points that are going to be going up and down depending on the animation below it. So that's all for this tutorial. I hope you like it. Remember that if you don't want to write the code by hand, You will see on the description of this video a link to my documentation webpage, so there you can just copy and paste the expression on the path value, on the path property of each on the line, and you don't have to worry about coding and all of the details. And also you have available on my Gumroad page this project to purchase, so maybe you don't want to do it yourself. It's available for just $1 and it will really help me to make more videos. Please consider subscribing if you like these kind of videos, and if you have any doubts or any comments whatsoever, please do not hesitate to put it on the comments and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So thanks for watching and see you on the next one.